So my mom's at the bus stop and John Travolta was there. I don't know how they began talking, but I know he started asking her questions, and I think they were maybe at first just talking about acting. She had told him that she was in acting school, and they were talking about just acting stuff, and she's waiting for the bus. And then he starts asking her questions about her personal life, and I believed she would, I don't know where the bus was at this point, if it was coming or not, but he's like, you seem depressed. Or you seem like, you could benefit from going to see these people that I see about depression. This is crazy. I shouldn't put John Travolta on the spot, but he did it to himself. So he was like, come with me. And I believe she started going at first. She was like, why am I doing this? And then she was like, no, I really got to go to school. And he's just talking to her. And it's one of those situations where like he's talking so much and she just wants to get away and doesn't know how to. She's like, look, I gotta go. Eventually, they end up at the building, I believe at the time this was the building for Scientology. I don't know if it still is. But they go, and he's like, yeah, let's get you checked out by these people. Like, it would help you. These people, I don't know what he said. I'm literally making stuff up right now. But essentially, he said, let's go in here. And so they go in there. And there's all these women who my mom describes as being in like these kind of like Amish lab coat crossover type outfits, like very like straight, like nothing, no frills, And they give her all this paperwork. She's answering these questions. She doesn't know how she got there. She's putting down personal information. At this point, John Travolta's like gone. And then she's like, wait, no, I don't want to do this. She leaves. She's already given enough personal information, like her address, and I believe she even put who her father was, who my grandfather was, an attorney, had a lot of money. They knew that. They probably thought that was very desirable, which is why she left, and they followed her. They were very upset that she left. They were like, this is crazy. You can't leave. And then they were like, no, you need to stay. You're harm to yourself or something. I also made that up. I don't know if they use those exact words, but essentially they were like, you need to stay here. They're very upset she left. She was like, I gotta get out of here. Goes home to her apartment, and I don't know how soon after this she realized, but there are these people staking out her place, or at least one at first, and she's like, that's crazy. This is scary. And they wouldn't go away. This is now a number of days. I'm botching this story. I have no clue how many days it was that she's noticing this, or if she even left the apartment, or if she was too scared. I don't know if she called the police. These are all things that she definitely told me, and I have to go back and ask because I wasn't listening. I was probably on like ESPN or something. But she tells her friend, she's like, he's in Boston, one of her best friends. She's like, something serious is happening. These people are following me. They're like ringing her bell, her like doorbell. They're like watching her from outside. She can see them from her window. She's freaked out. She's like, you need to like come and help me and you can help me by going to my father's house. He knew where they lived. Go to his office. They lived on like 30 acres of land. So the place might have been unlocked. I don't know. Or she was like, there's a key here, whatever. Tells him how to get inside. Go to my father's office where he has a gun in this location of the office. And he's like, why? She's like, just do it and come here this weekend. So he does that. He drives to her place. He comes and meets her. These people are still there. And I think now there's like 2 or 3 that are just outside of her apartment at like all times. And he's like, this is fucked up. We got to do something about this. And he goes out, and this guy was like her energy, like very like loose cannon type. Goes outside, starts waving the gun, pointing it at them. I think maybe they called the police, and the police like shrugged it off or whatever. So they had to take it into their own hands. And so he I believe fired. See, everything is I believe they did this. So this is what the story is, and you're gonna have to take my word for it. He fires off some shots, and that freaked them out enough, or I don't believe they came back. But then they had to get rid of the gun, and they threw it onto the train track somewhere up near like Poughkeepsie, I think. And it was like, great. My grandfather called. He was like, no sympathy for my mom. He's like, you got yourself into this. Where's my gun? I don't think he knew that they used it for that. But he gets, like, months later, the police at his door with his gun. They're like, Mr. Weibel, is this your gun? We just found it on the train tracks in Poughkeepsie, I believe. That's where it was. And he was like, calls my mom. He's like, why'd you, I know you had my gun. What happened? And she was like, remember the Scientologists? So, yeah, John Travolta's the best. So I don't know why she had to throw away, I don't know why she had to get rid of the gun, because that is a very serious, like, act. To get rid of a gun implies very serious things. And I don't think they just did it to, like, indulge in the moment, like, ooh, let's get rid of this gun that we, like, they weren't like that. So I would assume my mom had a very valid reason to get rid of it. There's a chance that her friend shot and killed a Scientologist. I don't know. There's a chance he shot and killed a Scientologist. There's a chance he nicked a Scientologist. I don't know. Or maybe he like did it and they were annoying and they were like, oh, we're going to the police. I don't know. But they had to get rid of it. So that's something that I will have to also ask my mom. Because they had to seriously get rid of it. Maybe it was because my grandfather reported it stolen. Now I'm totally making up things. I do know that they blamed it on something else. Or when the police asked him, he said that someone stole it. And, oh God, I don't know. Anyway, they probably killed someone. Because that's serious. Yeah, I missed that part of the story. I missed a lot of things. But, so anyway, my mom lived a lot more, and that's not even something where she was like, 'cause sometimes she'll be like, you don't do enough. Like, I'm open. I don't really go out a lot or like drink at events and like, you know, she seems to find herself in situations where I think because maybe she is a little bit more open to meeting people, or like she'll explore different worlds or social groups more than I will. I'm more confined to like my life or my routine, which I've tried to shake up. But for her, she'd meet people. She had a crazy dating life. She dated Vitas Gerulaitis, tennis player. Like at the time was like one of those guys that was like I think he was German or something, and Vitas sounds German, and he was like tennis players were like rock stars in the 80s, 70s, 80s. So like that was he and like Borg, McEnroe, those types. They were a thing, and she was involved in that group because she dated him. She got to know Borg and his friends, and it was like a crazy lifestyle. They dated, and she was like in love with him. And he really liked her, but he had a lot of women. She believed that he loved her at a certain point, and it became like, you need to, we should be exclusive rather than you be seeing like different women. Anyway, he was not exclusive, and he cheated on her after they agreed and they were like, yeah, let's be in a relationship together. And he went with, what does that mean? He slept with her best friend or her close friend who I don't know what their relationship was, if like the friend, like if they weren't getting along and that was a thing. Anyway, no, I think she was cool. I think she was cool with that friend, and she thought it was like fun and didn't understand the issue or something. And my mom was really upset, so she went again. What is this went? I don't do much. And she slept with, oh, this makes my mom look so bad. Slept with Bjorn Borg of tennis fame, Bjorn Borg. So that really, he found out, and I believe he walked in on my mom and Borg together. It was like a thing where they had matches in New York at the same time. It lined up, and she like did it with the purpose of him walking in on them, I believe, because my mom can really go for the jugular when she wants to. And he like cried. Him and Borg got upset. She was like, I know what you did with so-and-so, her friend. And it was a big thing. But she really loved him. She talks very highly of Vitas. So, yeah, the things we do for love and heartbreak, I guess, is the moral of that story. I don't think there's a moral to the story. I think my mom was just trying to get back at him. And it worked. Like, yeah, I'm gonna go sleep with the other best tennis player in the world. That happens to be your best friend. But I don't know once again, rusty on the details. Some of that stuff might be really wrong and off base. But I've never even come close to being involved in that much drama. But that was just like normal day-to-day life back then. So sometimes I'm like, I'm a 100% proponent of New York was better, I'm sure, in the 80s. Definitely. I would have loved to, but sometimes I try and be like, okay, well, there's good stuff now. But there's not really anything great now. Like, you can't do half the stuff. Culture's just different. And the stuff you could do back then sounds like incredible. Like the closeness that you could have with celebrities and artists, and just like there were no barriers. Everything now is, I mean, you would think not with social media and stuff, but there's still just a way that we're divided by more hierarchies, or at least those hierarchies keep us more distanced. There's also just more people living here now, and like the chances of, I don't know, maybe that's me, but no, I know for a fact there's no Palladium, there's none of these like giant like clubs where people go and have like an exclusive but also universal experience. Like, that just sounds amazing. I would have loved to live in New York back then, because I don't run into Scientologists. I don't think so. I'm sure I have. That's the crazy thing about working at like a coffee shop job or like waiting tables, is you wonder how many of the people that you've taken the orders of or shaken hands with or whatever are like bad people. Because I know the good ones because they're famous for being good, but you don't know the bad ones because they're secretly bad. Like, you don't know who has killed anybody. Like, I know for a fact I have talked to a murderer. Like, if someone was like, you know, oh, I wonder like if I'll ever meet someone who's murdered anyone before. Like, I know I have. I don't know who, but I know I have because I've talked to so many people. There's definitely someone who, whether it was an accident or they do it every day on purpose, like they like came in, or at least like, do you guys do matcha here or something? Like, can I just get a coffee? They'd probably get like just a black coffee because they're very business. Or maybe they're so psychotic that they want to have fun and they don't see what's wrong with what they do. I don't know, I'm making up like a person. But That's the fun. How did I start talking about that? I don't know how I got on that topic, but I'm sure that's what's crazy about New York. Still, no matter what, New York will always be, as long as it still exists, a place where there's all these people who are like out in the open, but hidden at the same time, which is really crazy. In California, there must be a house with like tons of weird shit happening, and you'll never know or like pass the person. They can do that stuff like in their spare time. But in New York, also that could also be happening, but you're also like in line getting groceries with the person like a block away from their apartment, which is just like crazy that there's all these people and they all have these lives that we know nothing about, which but like that's cool too, because people are like, New Yorkers are cagey, but it wouldn't be New York if people were like on the subway trying to learn about people. But if we did do that, we'd learn a lot. But anyway, yeah. Cool. Okay, right. So, because my mom's told me a lot of stories, and I'm not always able to sustain full attention for all of them, it's easier for me to know what's gone on in situations where I'm involved. So there have been, well, obviously my whole life up until I was 18 and went to school, we were in crazy situations, but that slowed down. So now and then I'm dragged back into a situation that my mom just sort of attracts or gets involved in. And recently, because there was stuff where like she'd tell me stories about how she'd get in trouble for doing this or that, but then I got to experience a little bit of like the scary side of things she'd get involved in. This all sounds so vague, but it'd be like her landlord in an apartment she was living in like a few years ago, who was just like total old school Brooklyn, but like not where it was cool anymore. Like he's like a mob, like an ex-mob boss type. And he's like old Italian, like always looking out for her, and so he'd say and stuff. And it's like, why, you don't have to look out for my mom. It's not like that anymore out here. And he was just like complete stereotype, tan and everything, and like had a cane. And so we thought it was funny for a while. We're like, oh, his name was Joe. And we're like, oh, I probably shouldn't say his name, but he was like, you know, nice enough, a nice enough mix of stereotype and friendly to where it was just sort of, he was funny, if anything. But then he, at a certain point, stopped being a good landlord. He was never really a great landlord, but she needed repairs and stuff. So my mom is very like, she's like, well, I'm not going to pay rent if this and this isn't done. And she withheld a month. He was like, Rita, what's going on? Let's talk. She's like, no, don't worry. Like I'll do this through the court or whatever. And he was like, no, I don't want a problem. So he like texted my mom, basically like, let's talk, let's sort this out. We don't have to do any court stuff. I'll do the repairs. This is months of not having heat and whatever during the winter. It's like, let's like sort this out between you and me. And so my mom's like, calls me. She's like, he wants to meet with me. Can you like come with me? Because like you'll be good at like backing up everything that I have to claim that he hasn't done this, this, and this. So I'm like, sure. So I go with her, and then he texts us to meet him in the office, which is the basement of the building. And we go to the basement. That's already kind of weird because we're trying to find our way around. And he's playing cards with this other guy who's her neighbor, who's like does all the work, like for the landlord. He's like his assistant type guy. And we're like, hey, what's going on? And not a single word about what the issue was. He's like, hey, you hungry? And we're like, I guess. Like, so we haven't thought about it yet. And he was like, well, you know, how would I take you guys to dinner? And so we go to this place that he says, let's go into a, he's like, I'm going to drive you. He's like, you guys ride with Frank. That was the other guy. And he had his little kid, like his little grandson with him. So I was like, oh, okay, so that should be fine because he has a kid, so nothing bad's going to happen. But we're a little bit freaked out and put off. And so me and my mom are giving each other glances. We get into Frank's car. He's like, yep, just follow me, Frank, and we're going to go get dinner. And we're like, okay, that's like, we don't want to do this. That's fine. We can like, let's just pay. At this point, we're like intimidated enough. We're like, we'll just give you the rent and fuck it, we don't need heat. And he's like, no, I'll get it. He's like, let's go. So we're driving, and then we're like on the riverside. Like I can see, I'm seeing like water, and then we're driving through like desolate factories. So now it's like really, really terrifying because there's no one around, and this guy's not talking, and it's like very Italian, and that's so scary. And so I'm like texting people, like my friends, I'm like, hey guys, like preparing what might be my last text to these people. Luckily I'm with my mom, so I didn't have to like text a big goodbye note to her because she was with me. Although I think I texted her like, what the fuck is going on in the front? And she was like, I don't know. So then we get to the restaurant, and it's like a scene out of Goodfellas. He's like kissing the waiters. We get in, and I was so relieved that we pulled into a parking lot with other cars and people. I was like, phew, we're not gonna be dumped off in the riverbank. So we go inside, and he's like giving 50s to these like 15-year-old servers and like putting them in their pockets. But it's still kind of like not that intimidating because it's 2016 whenever this happened, I think. So it's like the manager's sort of like, what's this guy doing? Like in a way it felt like a little bit performative, but everyone loved him. They were like they're all kissing each other like a billion times. And so I was like, okay, this is authentic. And then we sit down, they get like a pitcher of wine, which was gross, like so just Italian American, I would assume. And then we're talking throughout the night, and he's telling us about how people have crossed him in the past, how he feels like he can't trust anybody, and how he really loves my mom because he feels like he can trust her, and like she's the one tenant that he has that feels like she's not bullshitting him. And we're like, but we know why we're here, we didn't pay you. And the whole thing was just like really like a dream. And then he goes, at one point he starts crying. He's like talking about how he doesn't have a good relationship with his daughter. And then he says to my mom, like, you know, like you mean a lot to me. I care. I think about you as if you're like my daughter, and your son, who I don't even know him. He's like, I think about him as if he's like a grandson. Like, you guys mean a lot. And I've just had a lot of people backstab me. And when people cross me, that's when basically the shit hits the fan, is essentially how I heard it. I was like, whoa. And I just pretended I didn't hear it. And he's saying this in a whisper to my mom, which was really scary. And my mom's like, right, yeah, no, yeah, you need people that you can trust. And he's like, I need good people around me. And then he like comes back and he's like, Frank, tell him about the time I told you to whack so-and-so. And he's like, oh, I didn't do it. We had Stevie do it. And I was like, Jesus Christ. He was like, I'm not going to make you pay the rent, but let's not ever have another one of these altercations again. And so I was freaked out. They drop us off. I'm like, holy shit, we just like got away with not dying. And then And then I remember a month later, more stuff wasn't repaired. My mom was like so done with that place. And we didn't tell him about anything that we had an issue with. It was like, he got his message was clear. But she sent me a voice note saying, this fucking guy, Joe, I got to get out of his shithole apartment, and sent it to him by accident. She pressed J for Julian, and it went to Joe. And it's this rambling 1-minute voice note about, Joe's such a fucking scumbag. He thinks he can do whatever he wants. I'm getting the fuck out of here. And then 2 weeks later, we had an eviction notice. But we didn't get whacked, which that was really scary. That was really terrifying. So that's when I can be like, cool, some of my mom's batshit, interactions with these people, I get to get a piece of it. And that was nothing, but it was something, I guess. Yeah, so that's that.